What's up, everybody? This is David Leach. Welcome to the Drinks on Dave Podcast, an unbiased, unrelenting, and unfiltered show about everything and anything. So crack a cold one and let's go. What's up, everybody? Paul, nice to meet you, brother.
Nice
Welcome
to meet you, Dave.
Drinks on Dave, episode 6 at Fittis Espresso in Kansas City. Man, dude. I see we have a lot to talk about, but I noticed the Chiefs tattoo right off the bat.
Yeah, there was a friend of mine who was working at the Illustrated Man on North Oak, and she had a deal. She's like, if they win, I'm doing these tattoos. Like, first time that they won the Super Bowl in 49 years, something like that. And I said, got to get one. I'm from Kansas City. I moved away, came back, was super excited. I lived in Florida, and I thought, before I moved here, I actually made 2 predictions. Of course, I wish I'd recorded them. I said, the Royals are going to win the World Series at least once as soon as I get back. Mm-hmm. They lost, and somebody said there was no chance they're going to win that. But they won the following year.
Which is insane.
It's insane that they could go back-to-back. And then I said, and the Chiefs are going to get a quarterback, and they're going to go to the Super Bowl, and they're going to win within 10 years. And so that happened. And everybody said I was crazy for saying it.
So you've struggled. You know the struggle we've been through our whole lives. I mean, it's the Lynn Elliott era, Steve DeBerg era, Bono, Gerbach. I mean, I never thought it would happen. That's
kind of like New Orleans, the Aints. We almost
absolutely. What were you in Florida for?
I was dating someone at the time.
Okay,
I graduated.
Gotcha.
I went to college late, so I was in my early 40s. And so I decided to go back to college, or late 30s, and then finished my art degree. And then I moved to Florida thinking I'd love it. But I tend to like the West Coast weather. I lived there as a kid. But Florida was great. I lived near Cape Canaveral, and I'd always been fascinated with NASA and Disney, all those parks and stuff. So I enjoyed that much of it.
And we haven't even touched the surface with you, man. You're a veteran, which is amazing.
I was in the Army.
And this is a veteran-owned coffee shop we're in.
Which is even more amazing.
Which is awesome. So, I mean, you're a Gulf War veteran.
First Gulf War.
First Gulf War. So take me from Kansas City to the military, because we're going to backtrack now. Like, how did that... You joined the Army?
I joined the Army. So my dad was in the Navy in the 60s. I was on the same carrier as McCain. And I think McCain shifted to another aircraft carrier, but he worked with him during Vietnam War. And so when he got out after, and I was a kid, I'd always hear these stories like, well, you don't know how tough it is. I was working 18-hour shifts and 24-hour shifts. And so after I graduated from Park Hill, I said, I'm going to go in the Army. And I don't ever want to hear that story about I don't know what it's like, and didn't expect, and I lived in the Middle East as a kid because my dad had an airlines job there at Saudia Airlines. He worked for TWA here and decided to take a job over here. And so I went over there. So I'd been familiar. So I came back, went to Park Hill, graduated here. Then I finally went to the Army. He's going to be a Hawk radar technician, electrician guy like my dad kind of was. And the instructor wasn't real smart. I mean, he just wasn't good. And a lot of the guys in the class were failing. And I was like, I'm going to the infantry for sure. So I did this, this short run before, I thought I was going to get transferred to like Fort Benning or something, And so they asked me if I could do murals since I was kind of in limbo. And I said, yeah. They said, well, we have a general coming through to do some inspections on the barracks. Do you think you could do elaborate Hawk missile murals? I go, sure. Have you done that before? Oh yeah, I have.
So you've obviously been an artist your whole life. Like you were just.
My grandmother was an artist, and so I kind of followed her, followed her lead. But the mural, I'd never done any murals at all. I convinced them that I could do it. So the generals come through, and they go, well, who did this? Must be somebody that loves this, Hawk missile stuff. And they said, actually, Eade failed out of Hawk missile, electrician, training. And I said, he goes, what would you like to do, Private? And I said, well, sir, I'd like to be a combat illustrator. And he looked at the captain. The captain said, was there, such a thing? And the captain said, yeah, but school's filled up and there's no way we can get him in. And the general knew the general for the Air Force Base that they were doing the training. He makes a phone call. And next thing you know, I'm on a plane out processed in one day, which never happens. Mm-hmm. never happens.
Is what you were doing, is this for history books?
History books,
this is for
manuals,
wow.
documentation. So some of the work that I did ended up staying at Fort Bragg after the war. So, but yeah, it was an interesting run. And going back to the Middle East after I'd been there as a kid, I had, a grasp of the language. And that was helpful because I think people are much friendlier when they see you making the effort. And I had a much more empathetic view towards them, and it wasn't as foreign. And then I also convinced my friends, hey, like, try some of this food. Are you sure it's good? And now we see it all the time, and because of the global community.
Who was president at this time? Like what?
That was Bush.
That was
Bush
first
Senior. Yeah, Bush Senior.
So did you pretty much know when you were going into the Army, you were going to war?
No, I mean, we were doing a training exercise in Virginia with the Green Berets. We were supposed to play prisoners of war, and the Green Berets were doing this like training with us.
Yeah. And
we were just kind of props for them. And all of a sudden we get this call about Kuwait, and I'm like, Earth. And they said, we're going to war. And so they pulled us out of the field about 3 or 4 days early, and they were loaded up and we were flying overseas. So it was like we had no idea. And that abstract thought of, I can do what my dad does. I mean, when you finally get put on a plane to fly overseas, I mean, you don't know what the end game's going to be. You don't know how long it's going to be.
And again, different world, pre-phones, pre-social media. This
it was
completely different world.
It was scary. I mean, you go, am I going to, and they were telling us, look around you. One of 5 of you is going to be dead.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that way, luckily. But the second Gulf War, got in that direction. Did
you feel you were even trained enough to go to war? Or
I don't think you
never are.
You never are. I mean, that's the thing is you come out of high school and you're a kid, 18, 19 years old. I'm like, I'm not expecting that. You don't. Now these kids play video games and their association with what war is like is based on a video game, and you can't reset the button. You lose your friend, you make a decision that affects not only you, but the friends that you're around.
And how long were you out there for that?
So we were there for a year, almost a year, preparing, and then the thing, it went by relatively quick.
Yeah.
So, and there was just some interesting interactions I had because I'd been there, and they would put me in situations where I could deal with the locals that didn't really know the English language very well, and so I would speak Arabic to them, and I felt it was just a nice feeling to be able to bridge the gap in that regard.
I mean, did you guys have music out there? Did you listen to
Metallica? Oh man, we would. So we were near PSYOPs too when we were out in the field, and they would blast, music to irritate the Iraqis,
like Maiden.
Anything that was loud and obnoxious, and they would blare it, And then we'd have guys walking across the board, walking across the Saudi-Iraq border, delirious because they hadn't had food for, because the planes were shooting down all these supply trucks, and these guys would walk through the desert. And that was the other thing too, is for me, I wanted to make sure that when guys did come across, we obviously had to check them very carefully. They didn't have bombs on them, but for me to be able to give a guy, put the war aside, give a guy food and water that had basically starving to death, that felt like, the right thing to do and be as empathetic as you could be about it. So
when you came back into the civilian world, how was it? Like, I mean, did it take a minute?
The thing is, I think I did, there were a lot of stresses that I had that I ignored, and I was heavily drinking for Park Hill, even when I left Park Hill as underage when I wasn't. Don't encourage it, but I was, I started drinking in high school and got in the Army, and it was just a free for all in that regard. So I got out of the Army. I wanted to be in music, so that's what I did. Got around a bunch of musicians. I was always good at art. Prior to that, I did a lot of, when I was in high school, would do a lot of elaborate drawings or paintings of bands or somebody I liked.
Yeah.
And I'd go to Kemper Arena, and this officer would let me in, and I'd meet a lot of my heroes musically. So I got out of the Army, and I thought, well, I don't want to do art for a living. I want to do music. And so that was my thing. I went to North Carolina, and I was stationed at Fort Bragg, so I was familiar with the area. So there was a music scene, an indie rock scene going on. So I did that for almost, a decade, and then
Was this the Pearl Jam, Nirvana?
Yeah, I mean, that was
Jim Blossoms era.
Yeah, and you had the East Coast bands too, like Sonic Youth, and and so they were friends with. There was a band called Superchunk, and they had their label in Chapel Hill, and there was a lot of other indie rock bands at the time, and so people were coming and going to that area, and I thought, I'll be a lead vocalist for. My thought was I'll do 4 albums and I'll kind of semi-retire and then paint.
Yeah.
And it never worked out that way. I was around a lot of friends, a lot of musician friends, and I made a lot of friends through the years.
Like, who was your, if someone threw you on a mic in an audition in a band, who would be your influence?
I would say Bon Scott, AC/DC. Probably.
Okay.
Yeah,
that
kind of raspy, kind of gravelly voice. That's, that was my go-to.
Because the era you were in that music scene bouncing around, that was literally the era where you could see like Pearl Jam in a coffee shop one night and Nirvana in a club the other night. I mean, that's when it was bubbling, right? MTV was at its peak, and
it was fascinating to see things happen. I mean, I never got a chance to meet Kurt in Nirvana. I met Dave on the first tour, and that was to me that was fascinating, getting the inside on what it was like being in the band. And there's a lot of stuff that's that's public, and there's stuff that's private and stuff I probably don't share, but they had a good run. And there's one story I heard where Pat and Kurt are walking by a dressing room and hear Dave jamming and singing some songs or something, and Pat looked at Kurt or the other way around, and they go, man, he's better than we are, so he was leaning towards wanting to do his own stuff, I think, even then, but how that would have unfolded had Kurt not died, I don't know.
Did your band the bands you were in ever open for anybody big? Or did you guys ever get off the ground?
Never really got off the ground. It was always infighting, and then also there was addiction problems. So I mean, we opened up for some pretty raw punk rock bands, just with stuff that probably most people wouldn't know.
What do you think the difference is, how veterans were treated out of the service then compared to now?
Oh my God. Well, I tell you a story. I came out of the Gulf War, and we flew through Bangor, Maine. And we're seeing all these people, they're giving us drink, they're giving us beer. Like, they have literally rows and rows of coolers, and they're giving us beer getting off the plane. And we're drinking these beers in the airport. And I see this guy, and I know because of what he's wearing, it's Vietnam vet era stuff. And this is 91, so he would have been probably in his 40s, married, young family, little kids, younger wife, younger than him, not really young, but. And he's there, and he's holding the flag, and I walk up to him, and I said, or actually, I saw him greeting everybody. I didn't get close to him. Then I see him go down the stairs, and apparently he was going there and greeting people. And I stopped him and I said, hey, Vietnam era, right? Yeah. I said, what was it like you coming back? He said, I was spit on. And I teared up. I said, man, I don't think we deserve what you guys, the treatment here is given us. Until they can do that for you, I don't feel like I can take on it. And I teared up and I choked up. We hugged each other. And he says, I've waited a number of years for someone to say that.
Because I've heard those guys were treated like shit, right?
Horribly.
It was vilified from the...
Yeah, from the get-go. Baby killers. I mean, I still get, people that, being in the art business, it's, it is what it is. And people have their ideas of how the world should operate. But I get people ask me, oh, you're in the military? Oh, yeah, did you kill any kids? I mean, so that's kind of this preconception.
Yeah.
It's
that drunk campfire stuff. Some shit you don't ask. It's none of your business.
Yeah.
I've been around people that have asked veterans that, or people currently serve. It's just like, it's ugly. It's ugly stuff.
Yeah. I mean, even when I was in the Gulf War and I would see Bedouins when we were on the outskirts, and I'd see children, they'd get candy to them, or we'd have MREs, and I'd tell the commander, hey, look, this family looks like they could use some meals. And so we would take MRE packets, and I would make sure there was no pork, because they can't eat pork.
Yeah.
So we'd take those out and give them, they would be very thankful. And those interactions were, to me, priceless. And the kids were less scared when you were giving them food. And so I really like that. trying to do the best you can to make the whole circumstance right.
Are the guys you were over there with, do you still talk to them? Are they?
I do actually.
They're doing all right. Though?
Most of them, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've gone a long ways. I mean, I've kept in touch with a few.
Did you ever get to meet Bush Sr.?
I met Bush Jr. actually at a rally in Memphis, Tennessee, and I said, I was in during your dad's, run, and they let me in early, and he was just right by the curtain, and I opened the curtain and said, Governor Bush. I said, yeah, I'd like to. So I shook his hand, and very pleasant, and
yeah. He was just hanging.
He was hanging out with the people that moved him in, and he was behind the curtain, so I saw him right there. I don't know how the Secret Service didn't get weird about it, but I had a chance to shake his hand, and say, hey, tell your dad thanks, and so.
When did you officially retire from the military?
I got out. So I was in almost right at the edge of 4 years, and then they said, we'll give you if you want to get out early, 2 months early, you can. So I took the early out, honorable discharge. And
what would, I mean, if you wouldn't have got out, what would have been going on still? What was going on? Because I'm a 90s kid, so I wasn't.
I don't know. They probably would have stationed me in Europe or something is probably what I would have done. If I'd have stayed in, I probably would have gone to Europe or pushed for a station over in Germany or something.
And if you would have stayed in even longer, 9/11 would have happened, right? Or could you?
And I had guys I knew that stayed in for that length. I have a buddy of mine, Jamie McKay, who he
never got out.
He didn't get out. And I joked with him. I said, hey, did you ever go to Delta Force? He was like, at that point, years later, he's like, I'm too old for that. But he was I think he was a Ranger, if I'm not mistaken. So he saw quite a bit.
So the thing with your art that's coming into music, and then I look at your Instagram, I mean, that, like you said, besides being a veteran, your Instagram's full of celebrity. I mean, you're a Kiss fan, I'm taking it.
Yeah.
Those guys are huge to you?
Yeah.
Did you grow up on them?
I did. It's funny, I ran into Ace in 16, I think, and he was already out of the band at that point, but he says, when did you first hear about our band? And I'm like hanging out with a friend of a friend, with him. And I said, I saw Kiss live at the Cow Palace on the billboard, and I said, Mom, I want to go see these clown guys,
Yeah.
He goes, oh, that was a long time ago. He goes, how old are you now? And I said, I'm in my 40s. And they go, oh, wow.
What was that? Was that their breakthrough?
I think it was it was post-Alive. I believe it was Destroyer, if I'm not mistaken. So
I respect the hell out of those guys. I mean, I like the hits, but like when you really dig into them, I mean, they were the first shock rock, I feel.
Yeah,
Alice Cooper, the God, of course, but like Kiss. I mean, I'm a huge Insane Clown Posse fan. This is apples to oranges with them too, but Kiss was the first Insane Clown Posse. I mean, the parents hated them. The makeup, the fire, the blood, and all that stuff. And
I mean, I go out on a limb and I would say, I've played this trick on friends of mine who are kind of music purists and have said, I really like Kiss, and I'd play some obscure New York Dolls song and say, this is a cool Kiss song, and they're like, hey, that's pretty cool. It's like Kiss, it's with the New York Dolls, and they're like, wow. And so I think it's a lot of its perception. So I think the part of the drive that they made so famous is Gene is constantly pushing.
Yeah.
The brand, and I don't have a problem with that. Some people felt he went overboard with it, but I don't think that they would have lasted as long as they did it had he not done that.
I mean, their logo, even if you don't even, I mean,
kids wear the shirts, never even listen.
12-year-old kid knows who Kiss is just from that. I mean,
yeah.
Gene's very unlikable too, which I could see how, but I like him. I think he's a genius.
I met him the last time I was with him, we were at the Rock and Brews.
Oh yeah.
And I said, hey, I've got a gift for you I want to give you. And he's like, should I be scared? I go, no, I mean, it's like, and when I was in the Gulf War, I remember we were getting scudded. And I remember thinking, my God, I said, I've got to go home. I don't want to die here. And I got to see Kiss. That was the first thought. I kept thinking I kept seeing Gene's face.
Yeah, you got to.
We're in this foxhole, and I'm seeing, we're getting, and I thought, I got to see Gene. I got to see Kiss again. And that was the draw. I mean, I would think about them when it was bad.
Like in that moment, that was
that was a weird latch on, but that's what I did. And so when I got back, I always thought and I got an Army Commendation Medal for being over there. And I thought, I want to give Gene this medal because he was part of what pulled me through that thing. And so when I met him at the Raphael, we were in the lobby, and he came down, and I was talking to Tommy, his dad, his General Thayer, who actually liberated some Jews from the Jewish people from the Holocaust.
Wow.
Yeah, when the war was over, there was people that were left in camps, and he was trying to get them out. And so he was trying to liberate the victims in that regard.
And just so everyone knows, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off,
Yeah.
but everyone knows, like, you were getting shot at when you thought of this. Skidded, right? You were getting...
Scud missiles
yeah.
and stuff, and we'd have, there was artillery fire.
That's a huge moment to be thinking about Kiss.
Yeah, it was like, I don't know why, but it was that was the thought. I mean, it was the normalized idea of going back to concerts, being back in the world.
Yeah.
And I mean, I thought about my parents, but then I thought Kiss concerts, my buddies, So when I saw Gene, I said, Gene, I want you to have something. And he says, what is it? I go, I want you to have my Army Commendation Medal. And then Tommy, whose dad was a general, was standing right there, and Gene starts crying and goes, I can't take this from you. I said, Gene, I'm not taking this medal home. And I may get flack for it, but I want you to have this as a reminder that what you did affected a teenage kid in war. It helps, And so there was a moment where my hero was a kid, we're hugging. And so it was a moment. And, from that point on, we run into each other off and on. It's just a cool thing to be able to, and he's very supportive of the veterans and veteran causes, and is very proud of being an American.
Yep.
Some people don't feel quite the same way. And there's some things he does where, he said, I put my foot in my mouth occasionally talking about things that people should or shouldn't do, with vets. But he generally means good.
He's a big fighter for bands like my band too, like label support. Like we don't get paid anymore. That you're a musician too. Like there's no money in it.
No,
there is on a certain level, but I mean, a band spends 6 months getting a song ready. We all work 14 hours a day, dump 10 grand into a package of a song, and someone on Facebook scrolls by it. And he's called the music industry out on that, because it doesn't have to be like that. It's giving away your art, and that's where your story made my respect for him go way, way up. But my respect really went up for him when he was fighting for because he's like, I'm rich, I don't give a shit, but I'm just talking for the bands because there's never going to be right now another Nirvana, another Metallica, because the industry isn't set up for the support of it. There isn't a label to put you on a billboard on I-70.
They don't want to work. They want you to, most of the deals that are happening now are 360 deals, and so they want all your money. I mean, so the only time you're really going to make a bump is if you can keep ticket sales and you have a big enough venue. This is why, a lot of people like bash on Taylor Swift, and I'm like, she must be doing something right. She has 1.3 billion in that industry.
Absolutely.
And she's a woman, and I think it's amazing to see for a long time, a male-dominated industry, see her, may not like her music, but I think I think she's been smart about it. And I think the other thing too, I'm running into a lot of musicians where they said, if you keep your mind clean, you can maneuver your what little money you do make, you can maneuver that better if you're clean.
Yeah, absolutely. And just keep your side hustles up. I mean, you gotta, if you're in a successful band, you gotta get something else going, producing, art, anything, a podcast, something. You gotta work off that. But Taylor was a big advocate. She fought Apple Music for smaller bands like us too to pay more, which Apple Music pays more too.
Yeah.
Because she's threatening to yank all her shit off there.
Right.
So she's fought for it, because it's just, I think you just don't get paid enough, and but we do it for a reason. I do it because I love it. You do it because you love it.
Yeah.
I mean, with your art, what's your thing on that? If your heart's into it, would you give it away, or do you like?
I mean, for me, I've been fortunate enough that I have a collector base and the demand is high enough that people say, I want the work, and
that's good.
And I'm fortunate. I mean, I'm in a good spot. So, but when I see younger artists who are quieter or less, for me, being an ex-musician or singer, I was used to being in front of people and interacting and stuff like that, even though I sometimes can be withdrawn, but I tend to be active in that regard. And sometimes there's artists who are really talented, but they don't know how to, hustle. They don't know how to move
Yeah.
that art. And so I try to connect the dots for people if I get a chance, or say, hey, this gallery, you need to look at this artist
Yeah.
here, and because they don't have those opportunities unless you connect the dots for them. So
You pass down the knowledge a little bit.
it's a tough business. I mean, being someone saying, hey, I want to be an artist for a living is kind of like saying I want to go to Hollywood and be an actor.
Yeah.
But I think if you love it and you put the hard work in, I think anything you can we can make a living out of her, or it could be at least a strong supplemental income that gives you fulfillment.
So when you do a piece for a celebrity, one of these many celebrities I've seen on your Instagram, do they come to you with the idea, or is it what you're feeling?
Sometimes they buy things that I just do, and I gotta
That's
have
so
that.
cool. Yeah.
And then sometimes so I've done some stuff for Billy Bob Thornton, and that, a friend of mine, Jeremy, works for him.
One of my favorites of all
One of the
time.
nicest guys you could ever meet, and he's super, super nice, very kind to fans. I've never once seen him be shitty to people at all. He, at least not anybody else, not the fan base. I've seen some interviews where he's told the interviewers, don't ask me that question, and they would ask anyway, and he would get kind of stern with them, but never like that with the fan base. And I've asked him, I've seen, do you ever get sick of it? He goes, I'm a country boy from, I think he's from Oklahoma. He goes, I'm just a country boy that made it in Hollywood, and I'm just thankful I'm able to do what I love doing. And I help my friends. So a lot of his friends are in his movies and TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
Friends with Dwight Yoakam, and Dwight's a character.
Which I think, off the record, Doyle and Sling Blade got robbed of an Oscar. I mean, Dwight he stole the movie. Besides,
yeah, I mean, he was. It was. I hated him in that scene.
Everybody knows a Doyle though in real life.
Yeah,
that character. He lives across the street from here.
Everyone knows that guy.
Everybody knows.
It's like everybody has a uncle. I'm not going to say his name, but
right.
Everyone has that uncle who's kind of off the rails.
I mean, everybody has worked a job or has a family member like Doyle from Sling Blade, but the Dwight Yoakam. So that's his friend in real life.
That's his friend in real life. And I have other friends
sense.
that like was a guitar player, Guthrie Trapp, would tell me stories about Dwight calling him in the middle of the morning, like 3 a.m, asking him, hey, I need to, you need to go on tour with me. Don't go on tour with Garth Brooks or whoever he's going to go on tour with. You got to go on tour with me. And he's like, I've already committed. I can't do that. Oh man, click, And I asked Billy Bob, I said, how is he, in person? And they get along great. And he was in Goliath, TV show Goliath with him, where he played a arms dealer. That was a.
Mm-hmm. I know he's had a couple other.
So they when they can work together, they can work together. They work together well,
Absolutely.
It's just nice to be able to have your friends, around creatively. I mean, I like a lot of my collector base too are people I grew up with. I mean, there's a lot of people in this area. Some of them in school when I was a grade school kid saying I wanted to be an artist, but like, yeah, that's not a viable. Even then they were like, sure, whatever. But now I think I'm thankful to the respect that I get from my Park Hill friends. And graduate buddies, and people I was never really super close to, but I've made a lot of great friends, from just being at that school and running into people that I didn't really know too well at parties or whatever. And I'm just thankful that we're all alive.
Yeah.
Hopefully for the most part healthy. And I'm just glad that there's a support there. It's you dream about doing it, and I travel around and do things all over the country, and I've been around the world. My parents, like I said, my dad working with the airlines, and I was always kind of a nomad after I got out of the Army. I think that was how I dealt with. I didn't stay in one place too long. Keep traveling and experiencing new people and new things.
Do you ever run into the vet when when you're out and about, like the newer veterans that have come home, like the kids?
I'm really mindful of it because I think that what some of these guys went through in this last Gulf War is kind of like what they went through in Vietnam. I mean, psychologically, it was a long and drawn out.
Politically bashed too. I mean,
yeah, it was a tough, and I think the repercussions of that will be felt till we all pass. I mean, it's when I went back to school at University of Memphis, I had a kid behind me who's thinking about going to the military. He's like, yeah, I want to go to war and shoot people. I go, it's not like that. I mean, you don't want to think like that. That's not what it's about. And then I said, you see your friends being hurt that you went to training with for a year. You're never, there's nothing glorious about that. Protecting your friends that you're in battle with, yeah, sure. And I didn't see as much of that as some of my other buddies did, But I think the idea of, war being fun, there's nothing fun about, it's a duty that, it's a necessary evil, really. It needs to happen to protect our nation and our people. And sometimes our leadership makes good decisions in that regard, and some not so good. But at the end of the day, the guys that put their, and young men and women that put their life on the line to do that, even now I have the utmost respect, especially when I see a whole lot of people nowadays who wouldn't even think about doing that.
And you seem chill enough to where you could you're like me, you can just set in a situation. But when you're around these high-end, sometimes celebrity people, and they're just anti-military, how do you do it? Do you just, try to separate?
I kind of separate myself from that. I mean, as I've gotten older, there was, and I'm not going to mention the band's name, but there was a really obnoxious post. I mean, obviously, I respect everyone's political opinion, but there's nothing even remotely funny about assassination. There's nothing funny about it. Wouldn't want it for any candidate on either side of the fence. And there was one in particular that I was like, he made some obnoxious post, and I said, I don't want to see this. It's disrespectful on any level. Whether you hate candidates or not,
really,
there comes a point where for me, I just, and I've had friends of mine that have differing opinions. Even my girlfriend and I tend to, be a little different when thinking about where we land, politically, but I love her and I like the idea that we can sit and really talk about our differences.
I don't think people realize if that would have happened, me and you would not be sitting here right now. It would be unrest. Yeah. It would have been a mess. Yeah. If he would have passed away that day, it wouldn't be this world right now.
No, it's different.
And it came that close from that, and it just, Facebook was ugly that day. I mean,
it was ugly.
Because I lived in LA for 15 years.
Yeah. So you have friends there.
I mean, I have hardcore liberal friends, hardcore Republican friends. So, I mean, I knew Facebook would be ugly. I'm the guy that just posts memes and stupid TikTok videos, so I don't really know where to fit in when it gets ugly like that. But it's you knew what side of the fence you were on. Again, if you didn't already know your friends, you knew that day, because it was either it's not funny, unfriend me, or it was like, damn, he missed. And I think I know what rock star you're talking about that posted something. Still, a bunch of them did, but
I was like, that's over the line. And I think that even his own bandmates probably felt the same way. But it's just kind of like they're riding the wave at this point. And
awesome, brother. So, again, we're at Fittis Espresso in Kansas City, veteran owned. I didn't really get to plug you at the beginning. Tell everybody your name and where do we find your art?
Okay, so I'm on Facebook, Instagram. I have a website. I tend to be more active on Instagram and Facebook. So Instagram's at Paul Eade. That's PaulEade. You can find me on Facebook the same way, and there's my regular page, and there's my Paul Eade art page, and then pauleade.com.
Awesome.
So that's where most of the people find my work.
Cool. Real quick, we're going to do a little montage of some of his work that stands out to us, and check it out. But back to what we were saying, when a celebrity says something that they, it's like you look at them different.
It's kind of sad, I mean, again, even going back to the Gene Simmons thing, we talked about he'd made some comments about antidepressant drugs or something like that. I don't need it, or, or people don't really need it, or something to that effect in an earlier video years and years ago. And we talked about that a little bit briefly. And I said, I know you've said some things you probably regret. He goes, yeah, I mean, I do. He goes, the tough thing for me is having a mother who's a Holocaust survivor.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to have an empathetic view towards people complaining about things or whatever. He goes, but I have a better understanding of things. He's just, I've said some things where I put my foot in my mouth, and he has that kind of, I think everybody does.
In my generation, we've had social media since I was, for 20 years. I mean, I've said some dumb shit online. I mean, of course. And all that stuff can be vilified. It can be spun any way they want to say it. But it's funny that he said that, because our last episode with a girl named Emily, and she was battling it, Xanax and other stuff, and just recovered from that. So that is a real thing too. So see, I mean, when a celebrity says something, it can be 1,000 times more powerful than me and you saying it at a bar or having a beer. It's just, there's consequences. And I think the cancel culture, that's another thing that I wanted to, now that it's brought up. Do you feel that that's kind of died down?
I don't know. It seems like it's still seems kind of...
Tenacious D has got canceled for a second. I mean, out of all the... So, I mean, it feels like it's going away, because people I think now are just fed up to where they don't care. Like, enough's enough.
Yeah.
Because something isn't right. We know that. Like, yeah. It just doesn't feel right. I still feel something's coming.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that we should just be a little kinder to each other. I know I tend to be reactionary. Bill often says that about me being a little reactionary. But I think when it comes down to it, I think we should just have a more even, fair view of each other. Mm. I mean, some of my best buddies from grade school were guys I got into, fights with and stuff. And I'm not encouraging that, but I'm saying I think good things can come out of something that seems pretty stressful. And I like to think that, as we move forward as a nation, as a people, as just a global community, it can, be a little more mindful of each other and have a better view. I do like the fact in this country, I mean, since I moved away and came back just to Kansas City, just seeing the diversity that I didn't see. You're a kid, it's all Midwestern people that look a lot like you and I. And now you see, a lot of growth in the city and different types of people in different parts of the world. And to me, it's fascinating. And being someone who lived overseas on a compound that had every nationality you could think of, it's a great feeling just to be able to be around that kind of diversity. And
I have a lot of veteran friends and people in the military. I mean, even people from I graduated with are still in military. And every year, every 4 years, it just seems like whoever's running has the same spill for the military, same promises, and they play off each other's heartstrings with that. But what has either of them, left or right, because we've had both now, have they done shit for?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like the VA hospital when I just went to a VA checkup. And I have to be honest with you, the doctor that was there was a doctor who's from Leavenworth. I just met him, can't remember his name, but he's now my primary care doctor. And he seems very concerned with making sure everything is balanced in my life from everyone else and is on his roster. And I think that the buildings look better, the rooms look better, the treatment's better. Yeah. I think it's better than it was. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with the movie Jacob's Ladder, but you watch that movie and you're like,
I did one of my many hustles for work is I deliver blood.
Yeah.
And I go to the VA on Linwood all the time, the Leavenworth one. And I just feel that you go to Shawnee Mission Parkway, it's brand new, state-of-the-art, marble floors. And I feel the VAs are just not... The VA in Linwood, in my opinion, hasn't been updated probably since 1990. And I don't know. I wish the money would go... Just update them a little bit, and
I mean, my thing.
I'm not in there enough to know.
Yeah, I mean, they did some facing on it, refacing. I think my concern is I don't think they're really paying attention to the PTSD issues that are going to surface and get worse and worse and worse. Because there's a lot of guys that just came out of the war and then just threw themselves into normal life, and then the things will bubble and surface, years later, that they didn't deal with. And so I think that, that's a big concern for me, is to make sure that they really focus on the psychological needs of the veterans.
How could they do that? Like, what's
I
one?
mean, I
Like,
just think that they just need to be that more resources need to be available, and families need to be in on the mix so that they know if they start to see signs of certain issues. I mean, the suicide rate amongst veterans is still high,
Yeah.
and so how do we stop that? What do we do? And we can always do better. I think just awareness, and I think, and then things that are available to, resources that are available. It's just a tough thing because sometimes people don't want to admit that there's a problem too. That's the other issue is how do you get someone who doesn't want to get treatment, who knows, family knows there's something wrong, and maybe they just don't want to admit that they have an issue. So there's a balance of it. We just think we just need to do the best we can.
because there's no time to adjust. I feel that when they're thrown back into normal life, I mean, this world don't stop for nobody. It's not. There's no grace period. It's
No.
You got to go to work. You got to get, now you got to go start a job with a boss telling you what to do and can't be late and you're stuck in traffic. And there's anxiety that, I wish they'd have, especially the mental aspect of it.
It's a tough gig. I mean, and what I went through is nothing compared to that some of my friends that stayed in went through the second go around. And then watching my dad's buddies who were in Vietnam, of all different, the Marines and the Army guys especially, there were, I had heard stories of my mom's friend, her husband, would hit her in his sleep, because he thought something was trying to get him,
Wow.
He dealt with that for years and years. And so it's just,
Do you have siblings? Or
I have two brothers.
did they do the route you did?
No, my brother David had, I don't think he could go in. I think it was just medical issues. My younger brother Darren, he never went in. They got in trouble when he was younger. But it just wasn't his thing.
Have they ever asked about it with you? Have they
I
ever?
mean, my brother David is very mindful. I remember when I was out for 5 or 6 years, and there was a knockdown drag out with my brother David. And I remember the look he gave me of like, how can my older brother who's protected me my entire life do this to me? I remember that look he gave me, and I physically got sick. I remember going to the VA when I got back to Memphis. I said, I need to talk to City Members. Okay, that deal I was doing with. And my brother's, I have said to him years later, I said, I don't care what you ever do the rest of my life. I said, I'll never come back there and put my hands on you again.
Yeah.
And I love my brothers, both of my brothers, but to get in a situation where, it's just difficult.
Yeah.
But my brother David has been always very mindful and would maneuver, like he would always try to find, like if he found somebody who was an art collector at a job thing he was doing in the industry he was in, he'd say, hey, my brother does art. So he was always very proud of what I did. And I'm extremely proud of what both of my brothers, my brother Darren's a sales guy, and then David's been in clinical trials and had been involved working with pharmaceutical drugs that have actually, like he was involved with the hepatitis drugs that actually have alleviated that almost.
Wow.
Yeah. And HIV drugs, he was involved in, and putting those on the market and compiling data for that. So I've been real proud of my brothers both, but David, working in an industry that sometimes maligned because of some bad decisions, but the departments he's worked with and the companies he's worked with have been integral in providing healthcare or certain pharmaceuticals that have changed, especially HIV and hepatitis throughout. It changed.
Well, now people are staying alive a lot longer.
And he was part of those studies, and that to me was fascinating. Like he'd be at a party, railing on about how great my paintings were to some person. I'm like, tell him what you do. I mean, what you do is almost more real than for me, doing art is almost like being an actor. It's kind of, conceptual.
He was part of that. Your brother was part of that creation when in the early 90s, that was still a death sentence. pretty much, right?
Yeah.
So did he get into the clinical testing? I mean,
well, he was a data compiler. So he would go to research places and they would do these studies where they would compile the data to see how effective the drugs were. And he worked for a few different companies, but he was on the ground level of discoveries to stop the death sentence. I mean, we had a friend of ours, a guy named Steve, that had hepatitis and died from it. And the study for hepatitis and the breakthroughs happened literally 2 or 3 years where they literally were curing people of it, or not curing, but at least the viral loads were put to the place where you could live the rest of your life in a
somewhat north, because he could have been saved, right? I mean,
he could have been saved, but the study was just a couple of years late, and it was heartbreaking for my brother. And he would tell him, he says, we're almost there to stay alive, and it finally his body couldn't take it. I mean, it just.
Was he part of the Easy?
No, he wasn't. He wasn't part of the study, But
do you think they have cures for all this stuff, like on the higher level, but it's just too much of a money?
I don't know. I think that they try to. It just depends. I mean, it's kind of like vaccine or not vaccine kind of a situation,
A whole other conversation.
That's a whole other conversation.
I mean, I worked frontline through that whole thing, and I made a lot of money during it, delivering organs and blood and stuff, but I was frontline, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot about hospitals and just how the industry works. I mean, I was picking up the tests when they were supposed to be in 40 degrees Fahrenheit. I was picking them out of boxes and boiling hot temperatures, freezing cold temperatures. Then I was in gym shorts, which Steven, the producer, would love to know that I was saving the world in gym shorts. But I would go in these hospitals and I would deliver these COVID tests, and they would literally take my bag and throw them into a Santa Claus bag full of other tests. And those tests were supposed to get processed and revealed the next day so someone could board a plane. It never ended, and I worked all the way through it. So that opened my mind to a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I think it's interesting is like my brother, when we would go to get-togethers, there would be people that had been using one of the medicines that he was a part of that study. I think that is when it really sinks in, that the positive results were happening because of it. Mm-hmm. So anyway.
Well, I took a test. So I had to go to LA, so I had to take a rapid test, and I went to a Walgreens over here off Berry Road, and they stuck something on my tongue, and I just went barely in the side of my nose with a Q-tip. She came out, ran my debit card, came back and said I was not positive. I'm like, I guess I'm going to LA. What's up? This episode is sponsored by Fittis Espresso in the Northland. Thank you for watching the Drinks on Dave podcast. Please remember to like and subscribe at the bottom of the screen. Now back to the episode. But yeah, so with any addictions you came back from the war with, I mean, did you just have to basically come out of that on your own? I mean, was there any help?
Well, for me, the tough thing was the drinking, and again, I can get around people, and I got.
Were they giving you beer over there in war?
No. Well, the French Foreign Legion had bottles of wine they'd sneak in, but I mean, no, we didn't really have any alcohol over there, so we were kind of, we were kind of. It was tough. I mean, I remember like that time. I think I had the shakes. I got back to the States, and up to 2015, March, heavily drinking. And so I think for 10 or 12 days after that, I was...
The Aussie shakes, I call it.
I was rattled. And then but I didn't go to AA or anything. And I'm not saying you should or shouldn't. Each person finds their own way, but I was able to stay up for that. But
do you feel the drinking came from just trying to get
I just think I got... I think I just came from I think there was other members of my family that had their addiction problems, and I know that we've all kind of struggled with it, but I don't judge anybody for, whatever, it's their own deal. But for me, it took a long time to get off drinking.
Well, because now I'm just thinking, like, now we have energy drinks, we have cell phones, you know, there's stuff. I mean,
We have other addictions now.
Yeah, you were over there and literally, I mean, did you smoke cigarettes? Could you, I mean,
I actually came out of the Army and smoked a little bit, but I didn't do that very long. I did the hookah for a little while.
It's just a different era you were over there, were in. I mean,
it was a different thing. I'd say it was fun though. Is you know, you'd write letters and you'd hope 3 weeks later you get a response, or you'd send something out and all of a sudden 3 or 4 weeks later you get something back. So I remember we're sitting there reading the Stars and Stripes. They had Beetle Bailey in there, and I joked with my buddies. I said, I bet if I write Mort Walker, he'll write me back. And they're like, dude, there's no way. So I sent this letter saying, hey, we sure could use, we love this, but one strip and one paper is not enough. Do you have any books that you can send back? And I said, love to hear from you. And so I wrote to him, and he wrote me back and sent a box of books.
That's
and a
crazy.
drawing, original Beetle Bailey drawing. And I remember getting my friends like, don't tell me that's from Mort Walker. I said, it is.
You still have it?
I still have it, yeah. And I remember calling him, and he was doing a cartoon museum in Florida for a little while. And I sent him some original drawings from the combat stuff I did overseas. And I thanked him. I said, you know, that you don't realize how much of a difference it made to hear from you. And so, yeah, I mean, that was.
What was he known for the people watching? Like
Beetle Bailey.
But what was that?
That's a comic strip of Army. It's like Army life, you know. Mm. So it's kind of like.
Just so people can look it up if they're.
Yeah, Beetle Bailey. I mean, it's, you know. So it was just interesting. You getting stuff back from him, or you'd write to some celebrity and they'd write you back. I didn't expect it, but they did, you know, sometimes. And then I had friends in the industry that, you know, that were telling other people, and we'd get stuff that way too. So, but I think the highlight was my grandmother selling peanut butter chocolate. I mean, I don't know how it made it over there without melting, but she wrapped it in a tin, and it 4 weeks later was, and I was handing it out to everybody. And
gotta love grandmas.
Gotta love grandma. Came during the cold season.
My mom did that when Domino's, when Funhouse Pizza in Raytown closed.
Yeah.
She bought me a large pepperoni pizza and put it on packaged it and sent it to LA overnight.
Wow.
So I got one last Raytown Funhouse, because that's gone now. I know you know Raytown.
Yeah.
Yeah, now it's a fish place, but it's just funny that your grandma did that, because my mom literally, I had a large pizza show up FedEx at my house.
I mean, like now the guys I talk to in the military, they would get on the phone and talk to their spouses or family members on the phone. Like, they set up satellite phones. It was AT&T or somebody set up a satellite phone. So I had my list of numbers in my wallet of who I could call. So I called mom and dad, no answer. Called friends, no answer. Cousins, no answer. No. Got down the list and got down to grandma and grandpa, the same grandma that sent the peanut butter chocolate, you know. And I called my grandfather and I said, and he was a veteran. My dad was a veteran. And I said, hello. He goes, who is this? I said, this is Paul. He goes, aren't you at war? I said, well, it's over now, Grandpa. I said, he goes, are you okay? I said, yeah. And he was a World War II guy from,
wow.
Spent time in the Indian jungles providing airplanes that were going to China to protect the Chinese from the Japanese invasion. So he was, he's a hero. I mean, that guy he was in the thick of it. And I always looked up to my dad, and of course looked up to him. And, you know, I came from a family of veterans. So I don't encourage, you know, I'm not encouraging you to send your kid off to war or go in the military. I mean, I think that there's certain kids that probably shouldn't go in. And they should find other ways to, you know, do things which are for the betterment of our, you know, our situation here in the States. So.
Do you think the draft, did you see their...
I don't think the draft's the answer. I really don't think that that's the answer. I think that puts people in that probably shouldn't be in, you know. I think we should still try to be a, you know, volunteer service. The hard part is just getting kids that are clean, you know, that
good.
I mean, that's a, you know, talking to recruiting guys, it's kind of a tough thing. But
do you even think a draft would, I mean, do you think just the way it is, and if you're one side or the other, do you think they could literally get kids to go even if they were?
I think
there'd be a revolt.
There'd be a revolt.
I just don't think they would work.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is the harsh reality of the situation in the military is most of the people that go in are not high level income kids, rather kids that come from working class families, and that's the way it has always been. So,
yeah. Because Beverly Hills ain't getting drafted. We know that.
No, I mean, they're going to go to college or whatever school they can go into.
Right.
And again, I mean, I just think we should be, I think we should still be a volunteer service. I just don't see that. And maybe it gets to the point where they have to do that, but I think that's another whole set of problems of being in a position where that's required.
Because was that just like a social media bullshit meme, or was that really getting talked about?
I don't know.
I mean, because you don't know. When I see something on Facebook now, I have to go to 4 other places.
It's weird because like you'll see like a video. I remember watching like some political video. I'm like, is that real or is that an AI video? Like it's gotten to the point where you can't tell the difference. And so
yeah. Because when I seen Biden dropped out today, I went to 6 different.
I didn't believe it.
I didn't believe it either, and went to Yahoo, Fox News. I mean, I went to all the normal things, but I had to dig a little deeper, and I would have eventually texted Steven here because I knew he would have known, but like I didn't believe it. And that's where we're at now. Like you don't believe first glance anymore.
Yeah.
And you have to dig deeper.
Well, I mean, then you look at posts and you go, is this a real thing or not? Then you go and you look at Snopes, and then there's people that say, well, you can't trust Snopes, and it's just you become a kind of a cynical, people.
Is it true? I don't know if you know, but like if we do go into war before the election, can an election happen? Can the power change during war? Is that? I heard that's a scary rumor. Like that might be one side's advantage to. Because I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to get interesting.
Hitting around about a draft and all the overseas stuff. I mean, I try to like live my life the best I can and not get too but when a presidential candidate almost gets assassinated, you got to like put down the memes for a second and start looking at it,
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the greatest gifts my girlfriend gave me, 2 years back was don't watch the news all the time.
Yeah.
Just don't watch the news all the time. And because I would, you get fixated on it one way or the other, and you go, But there comes a point where you have to live life and just say, you know what, it's beyond my pay grade. I'll do what I can do with the times I can deal with them. I just think we're, it's just going to get interesting. I still say that we should still remain civil. We're all in the same boat, really. And, rocks one way or the other, but we're still in the same boat.
I'm just mad this is going on right in the middle of our the Chiefs. You know what I mean? Like, why can't just let the Chiefs season happen? That's all.
Let the three-peat happen, and then
the three-peat happen, and then whatever the fuck happens happens. But like, that's the first thing, because football could not come any sooner. I feel like as a country. I mean, we just need to get back. Summer's always. On election years is always just long and hot and
yeah.
And there's so much stuff going on. I just fall's my favorite time of year, and I'm just hoping we can get back.
It was interesting talking to friends of mine that after the Super Bowl when I was going to different cities and seeing other people in other cities wearing Chiefs gear. You would have never seen that 10 years ago.
Never.
I was in Florida before I moved back. I was gone from Kansas City for 27 years. So I graduated in 88 and I came back in 14, 15, so about 27 years. And I was in Florida, and when I said to this guy, he sees me wearing a George Brett jersey, he said, "You're a Royals fan?" He says, "Man, they just lost the World Series. They're never going to go back." I said, "They're going to win the next year." And he said, "Yeah, whatever." But, it was a joke. I was the butt of jokes wearing a Royals jersey, and I remember I wear Chiefs gear, and I was getting laughed at. Like, why are you wearing the Chiefs? They're horrible. So we're in a good spot. I think we should be very thankful here in the city, in the region. I mean, we have fans in Nebraska and Iowa, these other places that don't have a football team. It's amazing to see the camaraderie, that kind of.
Well, you love this city like I do. I mean, what do you think is going to happen? And you're a Missouri boy like I am. What do you think is going to happen when they leave Jackson County? It's going to get third world country-ish real quick over there.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
they're turning Adams Mark into a pickleball place.
Are they?
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why not make it a Margaritaville? Or I don't know. Like, it's just. I worry about our city, and I just don't know what's going to happen. I mean, it's because I think they're all moving to the Legends.
Yeah.
Not to get too off subject, but like we care what happens, and you know that affects everything. That affects art. That affects the city, the economy.
It seemed like, you know, with having friends in the art world or art business, and when they said, you know, not in the crossroads, or not in, you know, our light area and that stuff, you know, when they said no, the knee-jerk reaction from teams was like, well, if you don't let us play our stadium here, we're going to just go to Kansas. And so I don't know what that's going to turn everything else into. But I mean, I love the teams being in Missouri.
Yeah.
You would think that they could find a better solution to stay in Missouri.
Do you think they're leaving though?
I don't know.
And you said, where is the art district here?
It's like down on late 19th? 19th.
But there is an art district here.
Yeah,
where people like you.
Oh, yeah. They didn't. It was over there by the Kansas City Star Building, and
okay.
That area there, they're like, you know, it's right next to the Truman, I think.
Yeah, I know where that's at.
Concert hall. And they were like, no way, you know, do we want it to go here? And I get it, because there's a lot of small business owners here, and I get that. But then I thought the reaction from the team was, well, if they don't go here, then to hell with Missouri, we'll just go to Kansas. I'll go to the games in Kansas. I mean, this area has a long history. I just went to a book signing for a book about Wild Bill Hickok. I didn't realize this guy spent 3 years in Kansas City in the River Market in Springfield, Missouri. He was involved with trying to keep, you know, Kansas a free state, you know, a non-slave state. And so there's this whole region we're really part of one community. Although I still feel kind of like I wish the team to stay in Missouri, but how that falls, I don't know.
You
would think the Mahomes and the rest of the team, those guys could have some kind of say in that, but I don't know. I think they've all been kind of quiet about it, you know.
The thing I'll say on that is, because I'm always over there for work, the Legends has spent the last 15 years getting ready for them.
Right.
While we've spent 30 like not doing shit for them. And
I would agree.
Buc-ee's is over there getting built. I mean, a Barbie World for the kids.
Right.
Margaritaville. They're ready.
And I think the thing is too there's not a lot of crime over there yet. But I think that when these things move in, I mean, it fluctuates. Good and bad fluctuates with where activity's at. So, you know, this idea that they move to Kansas, it's going to be peaches and cream. I don't think it's that way either. But yeah, I mean, there was talk about the Royals going down there on Truman Avenue, I think, at one point.
I heard Nashville.
Really?
I heard that owner wants Nashville, but hey,
that would be the Royals leaving here would be.
That'd be big. That'd be heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking.
Well, it's a fun thing I want to do before this wraps up is like because people are, you know, I have a lot of people from LA watching and all that. Give me the 5 biggest people you've worked with. And then 5 people that you think you might work with in the near future. But because it's really interesting. We've done one other art guy on this show, and he's just coming into his own with it, and you've already established. So yeah, who's the top 5? I'd say. I
mean, I love doing. You know, did some stuff for did some artwork in the Dave Grohl situation. And actually ran into him the last time, and his daughter, she got work for me, and.
They actually bought it.
No, actually, with that situation, I actually got those paintings to him because she was an art person. She liked art, and I ran into him when he was in town the last time, and so yeah, I want you to get this to her. And but you know, and Billy Bob, you know, I'm going to do one for him, which is Frederick March, Jekyll and Hyde. We've been talking about it for a couple of years. He's a big black and white film guy.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think of
I'm sure his man cave's amazing. I can only imagine what his house looks like.
I'm trying to think of some others. Oof.
Gene Simmons, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, I've been wanting to do a painting of his mother. His mother passed away, so that was, I think, the last time I ran into him. I mentioned it to him, so I'd like him to get a painting of his mother.
And you met Kelsey.
Yeah. He has some mutual friends. I haven't done any work for him, but I think he'd be a fun one to project to work with. So yeah, trying to think of some others off the top of my head. Anyway,
Who's your dream person to work for?
you mean like just doing projects for?
Yeah. I mean, like, it could be musician. I mean,
I'll be honest with you, I have this friend of mine I've gotten to be friends, Tracy Elliott. She's out in West Palm Beach, and she's commissioned me to do some pieces, some large scale pieces, and working with her, and she's around a lot of people out there. She was a Studio 54 girl. Back
like
in the
one
day.
of the original.
Like the girls back in the day that would go to the club and with Warhol and all these other people were there.
Yeah.
She was there. And so it was interesting talking to her, watching all these other art people, and then having her, her partner, they collect artwork and stuff, and having her reach out to me and say, hey, look, I want you to do some work for me in my home.
Her stories, I can't even imagine.
Oh man, she saw everybody. It was the late 70s, early 80s, Studio 54.
I mean, that was sex, drugs, and rock and roll all day.
Full throttle, and she was around that mix, and so she was around that art world, and it was fascinating having somebody like that who has access to virtually, she can get artwork from anybody, and then she'll reach out and say, hey, I like what you do, and then can you do this for me? I think it was powerful.
So when celebrities come here, whether music, concerts, stand-up, is there someone you can reach out to get you a shot at that? Is that
no? I mean, with her,
it?
it don't work. But I mean, with others, typically it's a lot of times it's just conversations. I'm just casual and say, hey, look, what would it cost to do this or that or whatever? And I just say, hey, this is what it is, and cool. Well, I had my guy reach out to me, look at this and work out. So it's just been, to be honest with you, it's just been cool to have. I did like Tesla. Was a band that I grew up listening to, and then Troy Lucetta wanted some work from me. That was very cool. I mean, when I was at Park Hill, 17 years old, I'm beating the drums before I ever thought about singing, playing modern day cowboy and early Tesla songs on the drums. And then years later, I go to, it was surreal. Like, we're friends. It's just business as usual. But like, I remember him picking me up at the airport in Nashville. I'm like, the same guy I was emulating on the drums as a teenager.
In your bedroom with a
in the bedroom, or in the basement, and I'm beating the drums with bellows and cinder blocks, and now he's picking me up at the airport, and we're friends. So I mean, the celebrity thing, I think that's the thing is the celebrity. Just like you said before, maybe we're talking off camera, that you're just people, But it's fun just being able to pick their brains. I mean, years ago, the most interesting thing that ever happened probably was. AC/DC was in town to play a show on a Saturday night, I believe, and I was in Memphis at the Peabody with the Ducks, the famous Ducks that walk around. And I'm walking around, and Matchbox 20 apparently was playing with Everclear. I think
wow.
I think Everclear's getting ready to come here soon. So Art and Everclear is there. And so I'm at the hotel, and I'm just walking around because I said, AC/DC going to come a day early, and I said, let's see if we can talk to my buddy who's a promoter. He says, well, just go to the bar. I'll meet you later. I'll make some calls. And I see this guy walk by, and it's John Entwistle from The Who. And I'm like, The Who? I can't believe this. What's he doing here? So I walk up to him. I said, John. And he doesn't look back. He can't hear me. And then his girlfriend goes, John. So he turns around, and he goes, you know who I am? I go, you're like the best bass guitar player in rock history, He says, well, I did get an award in Bassist, Bassist Magazine for Bassist of the Millennium, but I don't know if I deserve the award, but I'll take it. He goes, well, so you're a fan? I go, yeah. He goes, well, we're going to have lunch. Would you like to go to lunch? I'm like, absolutely. So we sit down, we start talking about Keith Moon and Roger Daltrey and Pete Townsend and just the Who band in general. And he said, do you think you'd like to come to England? I said, sure. He goes, well, I can fly you over. And I said, well, I'll save my own money. And so he gave me his information, and I didn't take him up on it. And then 8 months later, they're going on tour. And I see the announcement, they're going to go on tour in the States. And I go, well, I'll call. So I called, and so his girlfriend picked up the phone in England and said, hey, John, this guy wants to talk to you. And he's like, who is this? And I said, Paul from Memphis. He goes, remind me where you were. I said, I was the guy that did the artwork. Oh! He goes, you can't come now, I'm going on tour, but I'd like to see you in LA or something. And so he goes, I'm going to play in Vegas first, and we're going to rehearse there. And he goes, but maybe I can fly you to the West Coast. And I thought, well, I'll do that. He gets to Vegas the first, first week of the tour, or before the tour, the first day, I think he died in Vegas. And it was just like,
What the holy shit.
and I mean,
You were
before, yeah, but when I met him the first time, he'd said, hey, look, if you come over, I'll introduce you to my friends. I'm friends with Bill Wyman. I'm friends with McCartney. But I didn't go. I was like, so that same day I met him, the following, Art from Everclear comes out, meets him in shock. And then the next day we see AC/DC on Saturday. And then Sunday I get the call, hey, AC/DC's in Little Rock, hours away from Memphis. They want to see you. I was like, okay, cool. So I drive the car, I go to Little Rock, and it's downtime, and I'm sitting there with the guys in AC/DC. And Cliff, who's a huge, Entwistle fan, he goes, are you the guy that introduced or told John to go to the sound check? I go, yeah. He goes, well, I got to meet him, hang out with him. He's my idol, It's like, well, that's cool. And so having these opportunities to talk to those guys about Back in Black and for those about to rock, and it's amazing. I mean, getting the inside scoop on how hard it was to work with Mutt Lange.
Is that the original?
Yeah, and then even with guys in Def Leppard, talking to those guys about working with Mutt. I think he worked on Pyromania, and it was just, getting that inside scoop. You're a kid, it's all mythos, but when you get behind the scenes and talk to these guys about that stuff, and along the way, these guys, different people would say, hey, look, I'd love to get your work, and what do you do? And that's kind of how the thing with Troy and Tesla came out, and so he's bought work from me before, and he has a new project, Risen the Believers, which is kind of his new project he's working with now. And
the biggest thing I took out of everything you just said is what I want people watching that are hustling like us to know. Sometimes you got to get out there and do the work. You got to get at the hotel. You got to think outside the box.
Yeah.
And that's how your connections are. A lot of them are self-made. And a lot of people now are so lazy that they think they can just send a tweet or a tag,
TikTok
or a tag, and it don't work. Like everything I've ever accomplished has been doing what you've done, and I respect the hell out of it, because you got to get on the ground floor.
Because one person leads to another.
One person leads to another, and a lot of people that are artists, probably like you, or musicians, actors, and I'm not where I want to be. I guarantee you they ain't getting at the hotel a day early and just sitting there and seeing, because it's a hustle that I think that our generations had, and this new generation doesn't, because they're lazy as shit. And when you accomplish something now, they hit you up and they're like, oh, how'd you do that, motherfucker? You don't want to know.
Well, I think the thing
years.
is, I mean, the thing is seeing, like when I was with the guys in AC/DC, I mean, the first question I asked was, what was it like to record Back in Black? I mean, the question of what's it like to be a celebrity, they don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
They want to know, I wanted to know what it was like to work with Mutt Lange, who is kind of like, you look at producers, you look at
Bob Rock, I think, immediately.
Bob Rock, you look at the guy that did do American Records, what's his name, that worked with Johnny Cash. And
oh, yeah. I've really, producers, you have to be in the game to know, but if you look back, you ain't shit. The producer is everything.
Everything. They're
really the heart and soul, and when you get behind the scenes, you start to realize that.
Yeah.
That it's not those guys didn't. The producer is everything. But Bob Rock, and I didn't even know that Mutt guy, but I just knew he was the producer. But how you were talking, because he must have worked with all the big five and all those big bands.
Of people. But Bob Rock, I think he worked with David Lee Roth. He worked with
he did
Metallica.
Yep.
Did he work with Metallica?
He did the Black Album.
Yeah.
And which broke him.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing too, is you look at that record, and it was a shift. And I love the early stuff, but had they not made that shift, I don't think they'd be where they're at now.
No, they'd be playing the Uptown Theater, possibly.
If they're even still around.
If they're even still around.
Hey, thanks for watching Drinks on Dave podcast. By doing so, you support veteran-owned businesses like Fittis Espresso and veterans like myself. I'm Paul Eade. I approve of this coffee.
So, Fittis Espresso, again, what do you think? What'd you have? We both had the same thing.
I got the vanilla latte.
It's amazing, right?
Amazing, yeah.
Hazelnut's my favorite, but this was amazing too. So we talked off camera. I mean, you're seeing the veteran-owned thing a lot more.
Yeah.
Fittis is obviously veteran-owned.
It's amazing to see. It's a great thing to see. I think that, and in clothing brands, explosion of it. I think But the other thing I'm seeing too, I think, as a result of veterans, is you're seeing guys who marry people from foreign countries, and they come here and they open restaurants, and so there's guys, Vietnamese restaurants are owned by, couples, and then you're also seeing guys that would spend time overseas, and they're coming back and they're doing different projects, and the diversity in that's pretty amazing.
Well, you said clothing too. I mean, that couldn't be more fun to design clothing and
right. I think
and all that stuff. But yeah, it's good to see. I mean, it really makes you, when you can go get a veteran-owned cup of coffee or a T-shirt rather than a big conglomerate corporate machine. Like, it really makes you think, like, put your money where it matters. I feel.
I think the other thing too is the fact that guys that typically come from a veteran background, not to say that they love the country more than the other, but there's no doubt when they do a business, they're doing it for the better of their community, their people, and
absolutely
they love the what that brings to it.
And you said other country. I mean, you've been all over the world, but I've never left America actually yet.
Yeah.
So I hope to. My dream is to play Russia with my band.
Oh yeah.
I want to play Moscow like Metallica did.
Oh yeah.
But
Pantera did it too.
Yeah, I want to do that. Everyone's like scared. I want to go over there and play. That's my dream place to play. But you went to. We were talking. You went to Egypt.
I did, 2022.
What the hell's that like?
Oh man, that's
the pyramids.
Yeah,
that's a whole. We might have to bring you back.
That's a 3-hour discussion.
Do you think they were built?
Yeah.
Do you think
by humans?
You really do?
Yeah.
So
I like a lot of people think the Sphinx probably was there. It predates the pyramids, and there's been some theories that it was a lion that was carved down to the pharaoh's head.
Because aren't they beautiful? I mean, aren't they just
it's to see them in person is shocking. But when I was a kid, just even when I was a kid, there was a lot of, I'd had crazy dreams about stuff, and let's leave it at there was a lot of things that drew me there to go back to.
Are they that big, or are they just normal almost?
I think the blocks are about the size of a car. So.
But is it like a skyscraper big?
It's like a skyscraper big.
Holy shit.
Yeah, they were the tallest. I think the Great Pyramid was the tallest structure man-made structure up till the 1800s, is it? Maybe.
Are they welcoming over there to America?
They are. I mean, but you have to. What I will say is you have to watch out for being hustled. They like to, it's a poor country. It's a very poor country. There's a vast gulf between the haves and the have-nots, and it's kind of historically always been like that, really. But very welcoming. I spoke the language, which was fun, especially when they didn't know you spoke the language.
Were they probably wide-eyed at first? I mean, that's...
Yeah, when they see it's like, and then not only that, I could read hieroglyphs.
Oh.
So I was about 20% efficient in reading hieroglyphs. So I'd go to the tombs and the guys would say, Shuf America Anubis. And I'd say, Into Yorani, are we Greek? They'd say, no, I'm Masari, I'm Egyptian. I go, you just told me that in Greek. And they're confused, and they don't realize the Ptolemies, when they renamed all the Egyptian gods and the words, that they originally had a Kemetic language, that predates some Greeks with Cleopatra's line, and prior to that they spoke different, everything's phonetic, so all the hieroglyphs are phonetic, and it's different than Arabic or English. Those are words. Hieroglyphs are phonetic sounding symbols.
I mean, over there, can you get a Red Bull? Can you get a cup of coffee? It's not that far.
But then there's the knockoff stuff too. It's like the
Dr. Thunder,
like the Rouge Bull or something. It's always like something, What
were you doing over there?
I was doing it was just a vision quest. I had a friend of mine, Sid Fritz, that went over there with me. I grew up in Saudi with him, and he has, months before that, he's sitting with the sons of the king of Saudi Arabia. So everybody kind of knew who he was when we went there. So kind of VIP.
Is that the kind of money where it's just stupid money?
The house he showed me he was visiting, it was like the size of an arena. with an Olympic pool. I mean,
my first room.
But they're super nice. I mean, that's the thing is they're super nice, and
they are.
And actually, the Saudis love the American people. They love them. it's a misconception to think that they don't like us. Now, don't get me wrong. You still have to be safe when you're there. You have to be precautious, and I usually could see, because just in my experience of being in a war, I can read the body language of people that don't want you around a situation.
The side eye, the tip.
Yeah, the side eye. Yeah, you get the side eye. It's like, I mean, if someone looks at you frustrated and kind of shrugs their shoulders, you kind of like, they don't like me, they don't really care. And then you have those who are just happy to see you. But the ones that kind of side eye you, like they're looking for an end to be able to, whatever.
What do you think their beef with an American would be after all this
I think
time?
it's just
What do you think
I think it's just being inconsiderate of their culture, and for me, I always try to be respectful no matter what country I went to, even if you didn't speak the language, to try to be culturally, but that was a great trip. I would encourage, and it's not that expensive. I mean, you can go to Egypt, you can fly there, round trip ticket for one person, if you don't mind sitting in an airport for a little bit, that's $1,300 round trip.
Yeah, that's not bad.
And then the hotels, you're probably looking at another couple thousand with food and hotel. So for $3,500, you literally could take a trip alone to Egypt and travel.
That's an LA weekend if you try to do
I mean, that's
with an
a 1 hour trip to LA.
It really is. I mean, like,
I got buddies that would go through that, and so.
But anyway, brother, it's like I said, we might have to do episode 2 one day. We haven't even touched the surface with you, man. Thank you for your service, obviously, everything you told me, and it's been a pleasure. And like I said, man, let's plug you one more time, your Instagram.
At PAULEADE and pauleade.com on my website. And then on Facebook, you'll find me, Paul Eade and Paul Eade Art.
Awesome.
I think the one thing I want to stress is how thankful I am. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not a celebrity. I have a collector base. I have done some work for a few different celebrities, and it's been fun. I'm thankful that people that spend hard-earned money to buy work from me means something to them in a world that's tough to sell art. I mean, it's difficult. And so I'm thankful that people connect with it. It means a lot. It's like a guy writing an album and saying, people love this song.
Yep.
It's the same thing. So
awesome, brother. Well, that is episode 6 on Drinks on Dave from Fittis Espresso in Kansas City. Thank you for watching.
Thanks for checking out the Drinks on Dave podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe below so you never miss an episode, because you never know who's going to show up and have a drink on Dave.